It's the summer of 2002. You got your Game Boy ready, you got your PlayStation 2 ready. Nelly is destroying the music charts, releasing bangers on top of bangers. Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire just had come out, and every little kid just wanted to be Spider-Man. Meanwhile, in the World Wrestling Federation, World Wrestling Entertainment, the company is in a weird situation. See, the roster was absolutely stacked in 2002. Just take a look at the Smackdown Shut Your Mouth roster that came out later that year. The roster got so stacked in 01 and 02 due to the fact that WWE bought out ECW and WCW. Also, their own homegrown talent was just becoming stars. So with that, the WWE split Raw and SmackDown into two different shows beginning in March of 2002. Product would change quite a bit. However, the following months after March were not the best. Ratings went down, which had been going down for a while since mid-2001 due to the wrestling boom being over. However, the quality of the product had just went down in general. No real memorable feuds or storylines during this time. Austin wasn't the same. They made Hogan the champion, which was cool for ovations and nostalgia, but it did not lead to good television. On the last week of May in 2002, the WWE did an overhaul. They finally split creative into two teams and gave Paul Heyman SmackDown and Brian Gewirtz Raw. This is where the build and booking for SummerSlam 2002 for WWE really kicked in. Wait, what? Am I referring to long-term booking? Booking for a show that's in August, in June? Getting the pieces ready early? Wait, they actually did that back in the day? What? Am I talking about the WWE? But yeah, they actually did long-term booking back in the day. So Dave Meltzer in June of 2002 called Heyman writing SmackDown a huge positive. The brand split finally actually became the brand split once the writing teams were split. From June onwards, the program would improve significantly. Writing would get better. The WWE started to have a much more clearer direction. Over the next 2 months, Brock Lesnar would become King of the Ring. The Rock would be brought back into the title picture and would win the belt at Vengeance 2002. Angle, Rock, and Taker had one of the best triple threat matches ever. So along with Brock and Rock, Rey Mysterio debuted in the company and became a fan favorite almost immediately. Kurt Angle was being a wrestling machine before he ever called himself the wrestling machine. Edge was now a fan favorite and slowly becoming a household name in singles action. Eddie Guerrero made his return to the company and started putting together banger matches, including one with The Rock. Triple H was in an interesting situation though. Post WrestleMania 18, he just wasn't the same. He was getting stale. His feuds were just not hitting like they used to. He needed a proper opponent. So luckily for us and for him, a little somebody named Shawn Michaels was brought back to return. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Writing started to make sense. Everyone had a plan, everyone had a vision. It wasn't a mess like how it was a few months ago. Previous talent was getting elevated, top guys were the top guys, new blood was getting interested in the company, feuds made sense, booking was solid, TV got better. SummerSlam 2002 had all the makings to be an all-time great pay-per-view. So let's fast forward to SummerSlam 2002. There were 18 wrestlers on this card. 15 were or went on to become world champions. The talent was definitely there. So the show took place at Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, New York. The crowd was hot to say the least. So the first match of the night is one of the best opening pay-per-view matches in pay-per-view history. Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio, in my opinion, is the greatest luchador of all time. Rey Mysterio used to put in a lot of work in WCW back in the 90s. His cruiserweight matches from 96 till 98, some of my favorite wrestling matches of all time. He was just so good. Everything he did was crisp, it was smooth. And in 2001, when the WWF purchased WCW, many fans were disappointed that they did not pick up Rey Mysterio. I'm sure he was as well. However, at the end of the day, it might have been a blessing in disguise. July of 2002 was the perfect time for him to come into the WWE. The dust had been settled of the invasion. WWE's moving in a much different direction than they were in 2001. SmackDown in 2002 was just perfect for him, which leads back to Paul Heyman writing SmackDown. Paul Heyman knew how much talent Rey Mysterio had. He wrestled in ECW back in the day, so he set him right away in a good position. If this was 2001, I can guarantee you the whole size issue of Rey being too small, etc., would have derailed his career before it even started. Because at the end of the day, 2001 and 2002 WWE were vastly different. Even though it's only a year, it was vastly different. Rey Mysterio and Kurt Angle is an all-time classic. This match didn't even go over 10 minutes, but ladies and gentlemen, this is a certified banger. Kurt, being the WWE veteran at this point, compared to Rey Mysterio, could have easily took control and just had a decent match, just winged it in, and not take Rey's move or work at all. He didn't have to wrestle Rey's style, he could have just played it safe. I mean, Rey was the new guy after all. If it was anybody else other than Kurt Angle, their egos might have gotten in the way and they would have done that. They would have played it safe, but that's not what Kurt Angle did. In an interview back in 2017, Mysterio mentioned the match and mentioned Angle. He, referring to Angle, told me that he literally wanted to pull out my whole arsenal and was willing to take every move to make me look good. And boy did Kurt make Rey look good, and vice versa. This match had it all. Technical wrestling, lucha, it was fast paced, it had drama, it was just a banger. This is how you start a pay-per-view. Not one dull moment in this match, it was just a sprint. Two all-time greats just going insane for 9 minutes and 20 seconds. It's an amazing match. What more could you ask for? Eddie Guerrero is one of my all-time favorites, and I feel he's a universal all-time favorite for a good reason, obviously. However, a lot of people just remember 2004 Eddie. They don't remember the WCW or ECW or the 2000 Latino Heat with China Eddie. Eddie in 2001 was in a real bad place. Among other issues, Eddie would sometimes show up to work unable to work, and Eddie was eventually released from the company in 2001 after getting arrested for drunk driving. Eddie always was a good soul, he just faced a lot of demons. However, Eddie made a comeback for the ages in 2002. He cleaned up, overcame his demons, and returned to the WWE, which was the start of the journey that eventually led to No Way Out 2004. So Eddie came back in April of 2002 and quickly became IC champion. He even had a match with The Rock on Raw, and after moving to Smackdown he had a feud with Edge that led to this match at SummerSlam. Edge at first wasn't the most open to work with Eddie. According to Eddie's autobiography, Edge felt that Eddie might only be out there for himself and he just didn't trust Eddie. However, they worked it out and they went on to have a great feud, and this was their first pay-per-view match. Edge at this point was just grinding out SmackDown mid-card and was becoming a fan favorite. He had a great feud with Angle and won the tag team titles with Hogan, his childhood hero. He was going places. Sadly, an injury derailed him later that year. However, this match was just great. Interesting note how Guerrero was the heel and Edge was the face. Both guys would later have like their most success in the opposite roles. Just a cool little fact. The best part about this match though, that it was a competitive match. Both men put in work, both men knew how to work, they did limb work, they did a nice story about Eddie who spent so long trying to injure Edge's arm, but somehow Edge still got the best over Eddie with the spear. We got frog splashes, execution, Northern Light suplexes. Edge sold like a champ for the whole match. It was a good match that would eventually lead to an even better match in their feud, the no disqualification match they had on SmackDown in September. But overall, it was a good match and it definitely put on a show for the fans. Then we have RVD versus Chris Benoit. RVD at this point was over huge, like it was actually insane. On some nights he would legit get the biggest pop of the night. RVD was unlike anything WWE fans had ever seen before. His moves like the Van Daminator, the moonsaults he did, the 5-star frog splash, they just made him so over, which after the pay-per-view next month he actually had a World Heavyweight Championship match with Triple H for the title. We can talk about what happened there in another time, but let's just say somebody had the little shovel out. And Benoit was Benoit, whatever that means. They won 50 minutes or so, and they just had a good match. RVD does usual high-flying stuff, and Benoit just wears them down with brutal suplexes and headbutts. This is how an IC title match should always be. You cannot make a title mean something without having good matches. So obviously there were other matches on the card. I'm not going to go too in-depth in them. One match that I do want to talk about though quickly is Chris Jericho versus Ric Flair. Now this is a solid 9-minute match. The build-up was pretty interesting to this because one time Chris Jericho had a performance on Raw, and bloody Ric Flair just came out and destroyed everything like speakers and stuff. It's just crazy seeing a bloody Ric Flair just wilding out. I love it. But there's an interesting backstory to this match. So Ric Flair in 2002 wasn't having the best year of his career, to be honest. He was old, he was kind of out of shape at some times, and he kind of peaked earlier in the year up until WrestleMania. But after the brand split, he was a general manager and stuff. It just wasn't the same. And then Stone Cold walked out. Well, he had a feud with Stone Cold, kind of. It just wasn't the same Ric Flair. He kind of lost his mojo. So we had this match with Chris Jericho, and he was supposed to win by a roll up, but Jericho was like, no man, you're Ric Flair, you gotta put me in the figure 4 leg lock. And Ric Flair's like, nah, I can't do it, like I don't feel like myself. And he just gave him this pep talk, hyped him up, and because of that, Chris Jericho taps out to the figure 4 leg lock, which I'm sure was a childhood dream of his. But it's a cool little story, solid match, definitely check it out. Also, Ric Flair joining Triple H after this pay-per-view was one of the best ideas that they had during this time, and eventually Evolution was also such a really good idea. It helped Batista, it helped Triple H, it helped Randy Orton, but at the end of the day, people forget how much it helped Ric Flair, because honestly, post the draft, what was Ric Flair really doing on television? Alright, let's be real for a second. In 2002, Triple H was getting pretty boring, right? He was out of people to feud with. He didn't have an Austin or a Rock to play off anymore. Him and Taker just wasn't hitting the same. But man, when a man has basically fought and feuded with every star possible, who does he feud with? How about a man who hasn't wrestled since 1998? How about his best friend? How about the man who's the reason he started getting those pushes in the late 90s? The man who was the leader of DX. It literally writes himself. My 5-year-old baby cousin could write this storyline. Shawn Michaels retired in 1998. There were always rumors of HBK coming back. It almost happened in 2001. Rumors of a match with Triple H at WrestleMania 17, which was in Texas, but everything just kept falling apart. Then things switched to him returning at Backlash. Then that fell apart. Dave Meltzer used to report stuff like Shawn Michaels walked out of the Smackdown tapings last week after a dispute with management. HBK in 2001 just wasn't in the best condition. 2002 HBK though was a different story. A born-again Christian, HBK was back in business, and he appeared on Raw in June of 2002. And he joined the New World Order. But man, the New World Order was dead at that point, a complete joke. Luckily for HBK, after Jesus saved him from his personal issues, Triple H saved him from the NWO, and it was time to reform D-Generation X. July 22nd, DX came out. Triple H and HBK walk out with the classic shirts, the music, the pyro, and it was all fun and games till Triple H pedigreed him and kickstarted the feud. And what a build this was. It was so simple. Like I said, it writes itself. Triple H would go on to say stuff like, Michaels used me to stay at the top, but now I'm the showstopper. And then HBK got attacked backstage in the parking lot. He was a bloody mess, and we get the iconic line of when HBK says, "It was you, Hunter," and Triple H says, "You're damn right, it was me, Shawn." Go and watch the promo for this match and you'll be so hyped and you'll be ready to party like it's 2002 all over again. They just don't make promos like that anymore. It was just so epic. Old man HBK coming back to fight against his former best friend. This was Logan before Logan. This match itself was just a banger. Ladies and gentlemen, this wasn't a wrestling match. This was a fight. And that's what feels like this one need. Shawn Michaels entered to a huge ovation. The pop was insane. It was arguably one of the loudest reactions Shawn Michaels ever got. And this match is fine now because you know HBK was healthy. But back then it was tense. They were like, how would HBK feel? What if he got hurt? I mean, after all, we thought he retired for good, right? Think of it similar to how when Daniel Bryan came back and every time he got hit in the head, you always thought of his neck and you just cringed a little bit. This match was just wild. It had everything: blood, guts, passion, drama, you name it. It had weapons, ladders, tables, people dying, thinking Shawn Michaels broke his back 100 times. Check, check, check. This match is just special, and the build and the hype, plus how long people waited for this, the return of HBK, the type of match it was, the crowd, the commentary, it was perfect. After 30 minutes of killing each other, Shawn Michaels won with a roll up. The finish was perfect in my opinion. I know some people don't like it when a guy wins a match without their finish, but I think this was just the right call in this match because it showed that Shawn Michaels barely won. I like how this match was a mix of big spots, and also at the same time you had some ring psychology when Triple H just kept beating the shit out of Shawn Michaels' back. Michaels was helped to his feet by the ref, Earl Hebner, and Michaels kissed Hebner and he was happy he finally did it. It was a celebration, and then Triple H just comes out of nowhere and hits him in the back with a sledgehammer. Michael collapsed like he legit died, like all the bones in his back are just done and you're horrified. And then Michael's on his knees and like execution style, Hunter just hits him in the back again with a sledgehammer, and Michaels legit looked like he died. And of course, Triple H hits him with a crotch chop. This is perfect writing. HBK barely beat Hunter, but who got the last laugh and whose back is broken? The heat that Triple H got was insane. All you hear is Jim Ross saying, "Triple H is gonna rot in hell for what he did tonight. You have no soul, you son of a bitch." The crazy part was, at this time, nobody knew if HBK was ever gonna wrestle again because originally his return was supposed to be a one and done. Nobody knew if his back was fine, but luckily it was fine and he went on to wrestle for 8 more years, and honestly, in my opinion, he had a better run from 02 until 2010 than I would say from 88 to 98. Don't at me. It was then time for Lesnar versus Brock. So after all of that, we still had one more match: Brock versus Rock. What I love about this match though, it was simple. There wasn't a storyline. It was simply Brock is the next big thing. Nobody can stop him. Nobody trains harder. Nobody's stronger. Nobody's faster, and he will destroy anyone in front of him. But then you have The Rock, who is the WWE champion, the youngest WWF champion in history at that point. He's the one thing in between Brock and the title, and the last person to give up the title is The Rock. So who's gonna win? So no shit talk, no elaborate storyline, it was just the best versus the best. That's why I love the poster so much. It was like a boxing event. It's simply who is better. And man, did they put on a show. The crowd was so hot, they actually chanted "Rocky sucks." Both men brought it. Rock was selling as only The Rock can, and he made Brock look like $1 million. Rock was going to Hollywood and he was going to take a break, so he did the right thing and he put the young bull over clean in the middle of the ring. Brock is just such a beast. He put on a show. Rock and Brock did the memorable kip up, and at that moment it was like, okay, Brock has arrived. He's the real deal. Rock is in trouble. Brock tried making his comeback but just couldn't do it, and what a match. Brock ended up becoming the youngest WWE champion in history until Randy overtook that in 04, which I feel like they only did because Brock left on bad terms and they wanted to get his name out of the record books, but that's just maybe me with my conspiracy theories. It was his time. The Rock after the show cut a heel promo that planted the seed of his Hollywood Rock turn, but that wasn't on camera. That was only for the fans in the arena, which I think makes it even more better. There is footage of that, I'll put in the description. That's the show. Go out and watch the show. There's nothing bad on this show. Go and watch the entire show from start to finish. Go see Jericho versus Flair. The pay-per-view will always hold a special place in my heart. As a kid, I watched this on VHS so many times. In my opinion, this is the greatest SummerSlam of all time. Like I said, WWE wasn't in the best position post-draft, but the summer of 2002 and the build and the event itself of SummerSlam 2002 was just so fire, and what a perfect way to cap off the long-term booking they actually did for once from June until August. The show just made sense. Everything happened for a reason. Everything had a purpose, which you don't get in a lot of shows. It was just a fun time. You had good matches, good stories. After this, Smackdown continued to be the solid show. Smackdown 6 became a thing. The tag team division was launched. Smackdown was fine because of Heyman. Taker and Lesnar feuded, and this time Taker wasn't still because he was the face and it made more sense, and Lesnar was that evil heel. Raw though, on the other hand, Raw kind of got interesting, but we'll talk about it in another video. Regardless, SummerSlam 2002 was amazing. What a time it was. Definitely check it out. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more content.